It was the night of my wedding, my grand fairy tale wedding. The head housekeeper of the estate suddenly locked the door to the bridal suite, grabbed my arm, and hissed at me to change my clothes and run out the back. Without knowing why, I did as she said, barely escaping with my life. The next day, I knelt and thanked my Savior. There is a lesson in every event, and wisdom is required in all human relationships. My name is Chloe Davis. Today is the best day of my life. I'm marrying Julian Ashworth, the heir to one of New York's most prominent fortunes. Everyone said I'd hit the jackpot. The wedding was nothing short of magnificent. We booked out the entire grand ballroom of the plaza, and an endless arch of fresh white roses stretched from the entrance to the main stage. In my custom Vera Wang gown, I felt like a princess. My parents' faces were beaming with joy. After a day-long celebration, night fell, and I was finally escorted to the bridal suite in the Ashworth family's palatial estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. The suite was so opulent it was blinding, decorated in lavish creams and golds. As I sat on the four-poster bed draped in silk exhaustion, mingled with the shy anticipation of a new bride. My friends had played a game of hiding my shoes, and a pair of silver heels still lay scattered at my feet. That's when it happened. The door to the suite clicked shut, locked from the outside. Startled, I looked up to see a woman who looked to be in her 60s. She wore the crisp, black uniform of the Ashworth household staff. Her graying hair was pulled back in a severe, impeccable bun. Her face was a roadmap of wrinkles, but her eyes were exceptionally sharp. I recognized her from the wedding, bustling about, addressed by everyone as Elena. Before I could even react, Elena rushed towards me. Her face was ashen. She gripped my wrist with a surprising strength that made my bones ache. "Miss Chloe, hurry," she urged in a low, frantic whisper. "You have to get out of that dress. Now." I was completely bewildered. "What in the world was happening, Elena? What is it?" I asked instinctively. "Is something wrong?" Elena wrung her hands, her voice barely a tremor. "There's no time to explain. Just this once, you have to trust me. Change into something inconspicuous." I left the service door downstairs unlocked. "Go through there and run. As fast as you can. Don't let anyone see you." The panic and terror in her eyes were undeniable, and they were contagious. My heart leaped into my throat. I couldn't make sense of the situation, but a powerful sense of foreboding made the hair on my arm stand up. There was no time to think, no room for a bride's dignity. A single thought consumed me: listen to her. With trembling hands, I tore the heavy veil from my head and fumbled with the intricate buttons of my wedding gown. Elena hovered nearby, her anxiety palpable. Faster. A little faster. I frantically pulled a simple white t-shirt and a pair of jeans from my travel duffel. There was no time to change my shoes. I slipped on a pair of flat mules. Once I was changed, Elena grabbed my hand and pulled me toward a smaller, discreet door on the other side of the room. It led to the service staircase. Pushing my back, she said urgently, "This goes down to the back garden." I left the small iron gate unlocked. "Go out, turn right, and follow the gravel path. Run far away and hide. No matter what you hear, don't look back and don't come back." My heart was pounding like a drum, threatening to burst from my chest. I looked at Elena, and she gave me a firm, desperate nod. Steeling myself, I opened the door and plunged into the dark stairwell. I stumbled down the cold concrete steps, the thin soles of my mules doing little to cushion my feet. My mind was a blank slate, filled only with the primal urge to run. The stairwell was pitch black and eerily silent, save for my own ragged breathing and the scuff of my shoes. I couldn't stop, terrified that someone was right behind me. When I finally reached the ground floor, I saw a small door, just as Elena had said, slightly ajar. I pushed it open carefully. The cool night air hit my face, shocking me back to some semblance of clarity. Outside was the Ashworth's back garden. It was dark, but a few landscape lights cast a faint, ghostly glow. I followed Elena's instructions, turning right and sprinting down a gravel path. My mules flew off several times, but I didn't dare stop to retrieve them. The sharp stones cut into my bare feet, but fear numbed the pain. After running for what felt like an eternity, I finally stopped gasping for air and hid behind a large oak tree. Leaning over, I tried to catch my breath. I turned to look back at the Ashworth mansion. The brightly lit estate, which hours ago had been my dream paradise, now looked like a colossal monster crouching in the darkness. A shiver ran down my spine. What on earth was happening? Why did Elena make me run? Was there a fire? A break-in? Or something targeting me specifically? My thoughts were a chaotic jumble. Just then, I saw it. A brilliant, blinding flash of orange light erupted from the window of the bridal suite where I had just been. The light pulsed once like a silent explosion. and then thick black smoke began to pour out of the window frame. The smoke grew billowing into the night sky. I clapped a hand over my mouth to stifle a scream. Fire. There was a real fire. Seconds later, the piercing shriek of the fire alarm shattered the night's silence. The mansion instantly erupted into chaos. Lights flicked on in various rooms and shadows of people darted past windows. I could faintly hear panicked shouts and screams. I stared, mesmerized, as the black smoke billowed upwards. My legs gave out and I crumpled to the ground. A deep, penetrating cold seized me, and I began to tremble uncontrollably. My bridal suite. My bridal suite was on fire. If I had still been in there, if Elena hadn't come for me, if I hadn't run, I would be trapped. Or maybe. I couldn't bear to finish the thought. A delayed wave of terror, cold and venomous, wrapped around me, squeezing the air from my lungs. Tears streamed down my face, not from sorrow but from pure, unadulterated fear. From my hiding place, I watched people run frantically around the estate. Some carried fire extinguishers racing upstairs. Others were shouting into their phones. After a long while, the smoke began to subside. It seemed the fire was out, but the fire in my own heart was just beginning to ignite. This fire was too strange. A fire in the bridal suite on the wedding night. How could such a coincidence exist, Elena? She definitely knew something. She had saved my life. I had to find her. I had to know what was going on. Hiding behind the tree, I was cold and terrified. My bare feet throbbed from the gravel and my body shivered in the thin t-shirt. But I didn't move, my eyes glued to the mansion. The fire seemed to be completely extinguished, and the alarm had stopped, but the house remained brightly lit, with people moving about. I heard the voice of my new husband, Julian, shouting something in an agitated tone. And I heard my mother-in-law's voice, sharp and high, directing people in the cleanup. They sounded very concerned, but a chill crept into my heart. If they were truly worried about me, why had no one noticed the bride was missing? Weren't they even trying to find me? Lost in thought, I heard a rustling sound in the bushes nearby. I jumped, my heart pounding. A dark figure approached cautiously, calling in a low voice, "Miss Chloe, is that you?" It was Elena. I almost burst into tears. "Yes, Elena," I whispered back. "I'm here." She quickly ducked behind the tree with me. Seeing my disheveled state, she sighed and took off her own worn cardigan, draping it over my shoulders. "This isn't the place to talk," she said softly. "Follow me." She took my hand, and using the cover of darkness and the shadows of the trees, led me to a more remote part of the estate, where a small shed for gardening tools stood. She opened the door, pushed me inside, and quickly followed, closing it behind us. The shed was filled with shovels and smelled of soil and fertilizer. It was so cramped we could barely stand. The moment the door closed, I grabbed Elena's arm, my voice still shaking. "Elena, what is going on? Why was there a fire? Why did you tell me to run?" Elena looked at me with a complex expression, a mixture of pity and relief. She patted the back of my hand. "Miss Chloe," she said, her voice low, "the fire tonight, it was no accident." I had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed made my breath catch in my throat. "Not an accident, then who?" Elena moved closer and whispered, "Someone said it deliberately. They were targeting you." My legs nearly gave out. "Me, why who? Who would want to hurt me?" Elena hesitated as if weighing her words. She sighed heavily. "Evil people. I was going to keep my mouth shut, but I couldn't stand by and watch a good person like you get hurt. I've worked in this house for nearly 20 years. I see almost everything that goes on." She paused, then continued in an even lower voice. "Your husband, Mr. Julian. He's not the good man you think he is." My blood ran cold. "His first wife. She passed away under very strange circumstances, too. His first wife, I felt the world start to spin. I was told she died of an illness." Elena shook her head, an indescribable look on her face. "It was an illness, yes, but not a simple one. I can't say more than that. All I know is it's a miracle you got out of there safely tonight. You need to think about your next move very carefully. This house is a lion's den, the world tilted on its axis. The man I had so joyfully married, the wealthy family I believed was my new haven, harbored such a horrifying secret. Arson. An attempt on my life. A colossal wave of fear and rage crashed over me. The shed was cold and damp, but I felt nothing. Elena's words echoed in my mind. Julian's first wife. I'd only seen her in pictures, a gentle-looking woman who had supposedly died of a rare disease. There were questions surrounding her death. Elena, I pleaded, my voice trembling. What do you know? Please tell me. I'm so scared I don't understand anything. A look of torment crossed Elena's face. She sighed. Miss Chloe, some things are better left unknown. Just leave this family. Go as far away as you can. That's the best thing you can do. I grabbed her arm, clinging to her like a lifeline. But I can't just leave without knowing anything. I was almost killed. I need to know who tried to take my life. Please, Elena. The desperation in my eyes must have moved her. She sighed again, her voice dropping as she recounted a terrible memory. It was about 3 years ago. Mr. Julian's first wife, her name was Isabel. She was a lovely person, always kind to everyone. Around that time, she wasn't feeling well, always tired, dizzy. Mr. Julian and his mother, they were cold to her. Her family had lost their fortune and they looked down on her. She paused, a flicker of fear in her eyes. One night I couldn't sleep, so I went for a walk and happened to pass Mr. Julian's study. I heard him and his mother arguing inside. They were speaking quietly, but my hearing is sharp. I heard Mr. Julian say, his voice full of irritation, "The time is now. We can't delay any longer, or we'll lose our chance." And then his mother said, "This time don't be clumsy like before. It has to be clean." What does that mean? A chill snaked down my spine. Elena shook her head. I didn't understand it all then. It just felt sinister, frightening. But a few days later, Isabel suddenly became critically ill. She was rushed to the hospital, but they couldn't do anything. She was gone, just like that. The doctors said it was acute poisoning leading to organ failure, but they never identified a specific cause. The Ashworths rushed the funeral and shut down any outside questions. She looked at me with heavy eyes. After that, I started paying close attention. I found out that Mr. Julian's company was in a major crisis at the time. They were drowning in debt. Soon after, he began searching for a new wife. And then he met you. Your family isn't old money, but you're very well off, and you're an only daughter. Elena didn't have to finish. I understood everything. Julian didn't marry me for love. He was after my family's money. He might have even planned to eliminate me, just as he did his first wife to legally claim my dowry and inherit my family's assets. Tonight's fire was the execution of that plan. A horrifying chill started at the soles of my feet and shot up to the crown of my head. I felt sick. To think I had married such a monster. Slowly, rage began to eclipse my fear. I couldn't just run away. I couldn't let the people who tried to kill me live their lives as if nothing happened. And I couldn't let that poor first wife die in vain. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to be calm. I looked at Elena and said, with determination, "Thank you for telling me, Elena. But I'm not leaving. If I leave, I'm giving them exactly what they want. They'll get away with it, and maybe even find their next victim. I'm staying." Elena was shocked. "Miss Chloe, that's too dangerous." "I know it's dangerous. But I need your help. Can you keep my escape a secret for a little while? I want to see how they play out this little drama." Elena looked at my determined face, hesitated for a long moment, and finally nodded. "All right. But please be careful. I'll do my best to watch over you from the inside." As dawn approached, Elena and I quietly made a plan. She would go back to the mansion first to assess the situation while I stayed hidden in the shed, making my appearance more pitiful. I messed up my hair and deliberately smeared dirt on my face. I rubbed my eyes hard until they were red and puffy as if I'd been crying all night. About 30 minutes later, Elena slipped back. "The fire is out," she whispered. It was mostly contained to the area near the window of the bridal suite. "Mr. Julian and his mother are in a panic. They realized you're missing and have people looking everywhere, but they're trying to keep it quiet to avoid a scandal. The police are here asking questions." I nodded, smirking inwardly. Were they really looking for me, or just trying to confirm if I was dead? It's time I told Elena. I'm going to make my appearance. I took a deep breath, schooling my features into a mask of terror and exhaustion, and stumbled out of the shed. I staggered toward the front of the mansion. As I neared the main entrance, I deliberately made a noise and collapsed onto the manicured lawn. As expected, someone spotted me. A gardener shouted, "I found her. Miss Chloe is over here." In an instant, people poured out of the house. Leading the charge were Julian and his mother. Julian ran to me and swept me into a tight embrace, his voice laced with frantic concern. Chloe, where have you been? I thought I'd lost you. Are you okay?" I let my body go stiff in his arms, fighting back the bile that rose in my throat. On the outside, I put on a terrified expression, and with perfect timing burst into tears. The fire. There was a fire. I was so scared I just ran. I don't remember what happened. I think I passed out. His mother rushed over, grabbing my hand, her face a mask of distress. Oh, my poor girl. You have no idea how worried we were. It's okay now, it's okay. It was just an accident. They said it was some faulty wiring. It's all over, don't be scared. Her words said it's okay, but her eyes were scanning me, checking if I was truly unharmed, searching for any sign that I might suspect something. I hid my true thoughts and continued my performance. Really, I sobbed. It was really an accident. I was so scared I thought I was going to die. Julian helped me up and led me into the house. It's okay, it's okay. Just an accident. I'm here now, you don't have to be scared. Let's get you inside. You're freezing, and your feet are hurt. He settled me on the living room sofa, brought a blanket, and poured me a glass of warm water, doting on me. His performance was worthy of an Oscar. I huddled on the sofa, playing the part of a traumatized lamb, secretly observing them. I caught the brief knowing glance that passed between Julian and his mother. It was a look of relief mixed with a lingering sliver of suspicion. I knew then they didn't fully believe me, but my return and my lack of immediate accusation had bought them time. The play had just begun, and I would be watching very closely to see how they planned to end it. Julian sat me on the living room sofa, and when a maid brought the first aid kit, he knelt before me to personally clean and bandage the cuts on my feet. His expression was the very picture of gentle, loving concern. His mother sat beside me, holding my hand and cooing words of comfort. You poor thing, you must have been so frightened. This is all my fault. I should have had the wiring checked more thoroughly. Once you're rested, I'll buy you the biggest diamond ring in the world to ward off the bad luck. I watched their hypocritical faces, my stomach churning, but I forced my own expression to one of gratitude and dependence. Sniffling, I played the part of the naive victim. Julian? Mrs. Ashworth, I was so scared. How could a fire just start like that? And in our room of all places. I think I smelled something strange when I ran out. It wasn't like burning wires. At my words, I felt Julian's hands, which were applying a bandage freeze for a fraction of a second. His mother's smile also tightened for an instant, but she quickly recovered, patting my hand. Oh, don't be silly. When there's a fire, you smell all sorts of things. It was probably the wood from the window frame and the curtains burning. You were just in shock, you must have imagined it. Julian looked up and added with a smile. She's right, Chloe. Don't overthink it. It was just an accident. The important thing is that you're safe. If anything had happened to you, I don't know what I would have done. He reached out as if to hug me. I instinctively flinched, then quickly looked down as if embarrassed. I'm sorry. I'm still a little shaken. Julian's arms paused in midair. A flash of annoyance crossed his eyes before being replaced by a look of concern. Of course. Don't be scared. I won't touch you. Just get some rest. Just then, a maid approached and quietly informed them that the police wanted to ask me a few questions. Julian and his mother immediately tensed. His mother quickly spoke up. Officer, my daughter-in-law has just been through a terrible shock. She's not in a state to speak properly. Could she perhaps give her statement after she's had some time to calm down? I inwardly cheered. This was my chance to gauge the police's initial assessment. In a weak voice, I said, It's okay, Mother. The officers are just doing their job. I'll answer what I can. I looked at the policeman. Hello, officer. I was so scared. I think I fell when I was running away, and after that, I don't remember anything. When I came to, it was getting light outside. The officer asked a few simple questions when I noticed the fire, how I escaped. I stuck to my script, acting like a traumatized victim who was too confused to give a coherent account. The entire time, I could feel Julian and his mother staring at me, hanging on my every word, seemingly more nervous than the police themselves. The officer took my statement, offered some words of comfort, and said that while the initial assessment from the fire department suggested faulty wiring, a full technical investigation was pending. At the mention of faulty wiring, Julian and his mother visibly relaxed. After the police left, Julian said gently, Chloe, you've had a long night. Go get some rest in one of the guest rooms. The bridal suite will be unusable for a while. I nodded and leaned weakly against him. As he supported me up the stairs, my heart was as cold as ice. Their reactions were so obvious. Their tension during the police questioning and their subsequent relief. If it were a real accident, why would they be so worried about what the investigation might find? And my deliberate mention of a strange smell, they immediately shut it down, wanting to avoid any deeper inquiry. Elena's words were all but confirmed. These two were wolves who had tried to kill me. After settling me in the guest room and offering a stream of comforting words, Julian finally left, promising to take me to the hospital for a full checkup the next day. The moment the door closed, the look of vulnerability vanished from my face. I walked to the window and looked out at the brightening sky. My heart was a maelstrom of fear and hatred, but a greater resolve was taking root. Just you wait. This play won't end the way you want it to. Alone in the guest room with the door locked, I finally allowed myself to relax completely. My back was soaked in a cold sweat. The performance with those wolves had been more exhausting than running a marathon. I sank onto the bed, my heart still pounding. As the fear subsided, it was replaced by a towering rage and a profound sense of isolation. In this glamorous house, I had to be careful with every breath I took. Aside from Elena, there wasn't a single person I could trust. But Elena was, after all, an employee of the Ashworth family, helping me put her at enormous risk. I couldn't rely on her for everything. I needed my own allies, people on the outside who could help me. The first person who came to mind was my cousin Mia. Mia was 2 years younger than me, but we had grown up like sisters. She was sharp, quick-witted, and a brilliant hacker who had studied computer science at MIT. Most importantly, she was trustworthy and could keep a secret. I quickly pulled out my phone. Thankfully, it had been in my jeans pocket the whole time. It was a little after 6 a.m. There was no time to hesitate. I called Mia. After a few rings, her sleepy voice answered. "Hello, Chloe, what's up? It's the crack of dawn. Isn't this like day 2 of your honeymoon? You should be, this is not the time." Hearing a family member's voice, my throat tightened, and I almost burst into tears. I choked them back and lowered my voice. "Mia, listen to me very carefully. I'm in serious trouble. Really serious." Mia's sleepiness vanished instantly. Her voice became sharp. "Chloe, what's wrong? Did that bastard Julian hurt you?" I quickly summarized the events of the past night, Elena's warning the fire, her suspicion that it was a conspiracy, the questionable death of Julian's first wife, and my little test just moments before. Mia listened in stunned silence. When I finished, she let out a string of curses. "That psychotic son of a bitch. Chloe, hang on. I'm booking a flight right now." "No, don't come," I said quickly. "It would be too obvious. It would just make things worse. I need you to help me from out there." "Then what are you going to do?" Mia asked, her voice fraught with worry. "You can't stay in that den of wolves by yourself. Listen to me. I need you to find out 2 things. First, do whatever you can to find out the real cause of death for Julian's first wife, Isabel. Hospital records, any doctors or nurses who were there. Second, dig into the Ashworth Company's finances. Find out if they're really in debt, how much, and to whom. You have to be careful not to get caught." "No problem," Mia replied instantly. "Leave it to me. Hacking into hospital systems and corporate ledgers is my specialty. Chloe, please be careful. Stay in touch and call me the second anything happens." After hanging up, I felt a little bit of relief. With Mia helping me from the outside, I wasn't fighting alone. But inside this mansion, I still had to rely on myself. Julian and his mother might have temporarily lowered their guard after my morning performance, but they wouldn't be completely at ease. I had to keep up the act until they let their guard down entirely. For the foreseeable future, I would have to perfectly play the role of a sweet, naive new bride, slowly recovering from trauma and becoming ever more dependent on her husband. I had to be a better actor than they were. I couldn't just wait for Mia's results. I had to find clues myself. For the next 2 days, Julian and his mother were impeccably kind to me. They constantly checked on me, brought me nourishing meals, and never once mentioned the fire, treating it as if it were a simple, unfortunate accident. I played along, pretending to slowly recover from the shock, while becoming more and more reliant on Julian. I looked at him with eyes full of adoration mixed with the vulnerability of someone who had almost lost everything. He seemed pleased with this version of me, and his suspicious gaze seemed to soften. But the knot of tension inside me never loosened. I knew it was all a lie. My opportunity came on the afternoon of the 3rd day. Julian got an urgent call from the office and left in a hurry after a few words with his mother. A short while later, his mother, dressed to the nines, also left for a spa appointment with her friends. The house suddenly fell quiet, with only a few staff members moving about downstairs. My heart began to race. Julian's study was at the end of the 2nd-floor hallway. He was notoriously private about it, not even letting the staff clean it. There had to be something in there. Pretending to go down for a glass of water, I surveyed the ground floor. Elena was in the kitchen overseeing dinner preparations, and the other maids were busy with their tasks. I took a deep breath and tiptoed back upstairs. Standing before the study door, I tried the handle. It was unlocked. I quickly slipped inside and quietly closed the door. The study was spacious and decorated in a classic old-world style. On the large mahogany desk sat a computer and a few stacks of papers. My heart hammered against my ribs. I had to be fast. I quickly skimmed the papers on the desk. They were mostly project contracts and proposals, things I didn't fully understand, with nothing obviously incriminating. I tried the desk drawers, but most were locked. The one unlocked drawer contained only pens, notepads, and other mundane office supplies. Disappointed, I was about to give up when the wastebasket caught my eye. It only contained a few crumpled balls of paper. Something compelled me to reach in and pull them out. I carefully smoothed them open. One was a doodle on a notepad. Another was a discarded sticky note. On it was a scribbled name I didn't recognize, a string of numbers, and the notation 5%. I quickly took a photo with my phone. Then I noticed a small filing cabinet next to the desk. In the bottom drawer was an old leather briefcase. I pulled it out and opened it. Inside were just a few old magazines. But as I felt the side pocket, my fingers brushed against something. I pulled it out. It was a folded insurance policy. My heart leaped. I hurriedly unfolded it. It was a life insurance policy. The insured was me, Chloe Davis. The beneficiary was Julian Ashworth. The payout amount was a staggering $10 million. The policy was dated the day before we had officially registered our marriage. The hand holding the document trembled. A chill washed over me. So that's it. That's why he was in such a hurry to marry me. Why he took out a massive insurance policy right after. He was going to stage an accident, kill me, and legally collect the huge payout to solve his company's debt problems. It was a truly diabolical plan. Suppressing my rage and fear, I quickly took clear photos of the entire policy with my phone. Then I put everything back exactly as I had found it, slipped out of the study, and returned to my room. Sitting on the bed, staring at the photos on my phone, my hands and feet were ice cold with terror and fury. While it wasn't direct proof that they had tried to kill me, this policy was more than enough to establish their motive. If Mia could uncover the truth about the first wife's death and the company's financial troubles, the chain of evidence would be complete. Julian, just you wait. You're going to pay for this. After discovering the horrifying insurance policy, I was on edge all day. Every time I saw the smiling faces of Julian and his mother, I was hit with a wave of disgust and fear, but I had to pretend everything was normal. After dinner, I excused myself early, claiming I was tired. Julian solicitously walked me up to my room. Alone in the guest room, the suffocating feeling of being surrounded by a conspiracy washed over me again. The policy alone wasn't enough. I needed more direct evidence to put them away for good. As I was lost in thought, there was a soft knock on the door. I jumped, my body tensing. "Who is it?" Elena's low voice came from outside. "It's me, Miss Chloe." "Elena, I brought you a glass of warm milk to help you sleep." I let out a breath of relief and hurried to open the door. Elena stood there holding a glass of milk, her eyes sending me a signal. I led her into the room and closed the door. She placed the milk on the nightstand but didn't leave. Instead, she carefully pulled a small object wrapped in a handkerchief from her apron pocket. With a tense expression, she said, "Miss Chloe, the day after the fire I was cleaning up the debris in the bridal suite before anyone else could. I found this in the ashes near the window frame." She unwrapped the handkerchief. Inside was a small, half-melted piece of metal. A little piece of plastic was still attached to one end. It didn't look like part of a lamp, or any appliance I recognized. I took it and examined it, but I couldn't tell what it was. "Elena, what is this?" She lowered her voice even more. "My son is an electrician. I remember him telling me about things like this. It looks like a component from a timer or a remote-controlled device. It's not something that should be in a new house." My mind reeled. A timer, a remote-controlled device. If the fire was arson, the culprit would have needed something to start or control the blaze. This burnt fragment could be the smoking gun. My hand trembled with excitement. "Elena, this is incredibly important. Did anyone else see it?" She quickly shook her head. No, I hid it well. Nobody knows. Miss Chloe, will this help?" I clutched the small remnant like a beacon of hope. Help. This is undeniable proof that the fire was no accident. Elena let out a sigh of relief, but her face was still etched with worry. "Please hide it carefully. It would be terrible if they found it. These people are not to be trifled with." I nodded, found a small Ziploc bag, and carefully placed the crucial piece of evidence inside. I then hid it in the most secret compartment of my suitcase. This, along with the insurance policy and whatever Mia was digging up, would give me a fighting chance. Elena was my savior again and again. Overcome with gratitude, I took her hands. Thank you, Elena. Truly. If it weren't for you, I'd already be dead. She patted my hand. You're a good person, Miss Chloe. Good people deserve to be protected. Please take care of yourself and let me know if you need anything. After Elena left, I looked at the hidden evidence, feeling a surge of strength. Julian, and your mother, Eleanor. You won't be able to hide your true colors for much longer. With two crucial pieces of evidence in hand, I spent the next few days walking on eggshells in the Ashworth mansion. On one hand, I had to continue playing the part of a fragile wife still reeling from trauma and dependent on her husband. On the other, I had to remain constantly vigilant, secretly observing them and buying time for Mia to complete her investigation. Julian and his mother, seeing me gradually return to normal, seemed to lower their guard. Julian even began to complain occasionally about his business, saying that cash flow was tight but that he would resolve it soon, telling me not to worry. I scoffed internally. I'm not worried. I know your solution is to kill me and cash in my insurance policy. 2 more days passed. Just as I was about to burst with the need to contact Mia, my phone finally rang. It was her. That afternoon, both Julian and his mother were out. I hid in my room, locked the door, and answered the call. Mia's voice was a torrent of excitement and fury. Chloe, I got it all. My God, the Ashworth family is rotten to the core. Quick, tell me, I whispered urgently. What did you find? Mia spoke in a rapid-fire burst. First about Isabel, the first wife. I got a friend to pull the internal hospital records and an unpublished autopsy report. Officially, the cause of death was multiple organ failure due to acute poisoning, but the toxicology section was incredibly vague, and the emergency treatment process was weird, almost like they were deliberately stalling. But here's the kicker. I found out one of the nurses on duty that night quit right after. It took a lot of digging, but I found her. I held my breath. And what did she say? I told her I was an investigative journalist looking into corruption among the wealthy. She was reluctant to talk at first, but when I hinted at a financial reward, she opened up. She said she overheard Julian and his mother arguing outside the ER that night. They were saying things like, "Did you use the wrong dosage?" And, "Why is she still breathing?" She was so terrified she never told anyone. After Isabel died, she lived in constant fear of retaliation, so she quit her job and moved back to her hometown. I felt my blood run cold. Wrong dosage. Still breathing. That was practically a confession. And Julian's company, Mia, continued Chloe, that family is living on fumes. They have debts in the hundreds of millions from banks to loan sharks. Several of their big projects have gone under, and creditors are hounding them daily. Marrying you was a clear-cut move for your family's money, either to get their hands on your trust fund or your life insurance payout to cover their debts. I had already suspected it, but hearing the concrete numbers and details from Mia made my heart sink. Hundreds of millions in debt. No wonder they were willing to take such a desperate gamble. Chloe, the evidence is solid, Mia said, her voice seething with anger. Let's go to the police. It's too dangerous for you there. I forced myself to remain calm. Mia, you did an amazing job. This information is critical. But it's not enough to go to the police just yet. We need something more direct, like a recording of them confessing. Otherwise, they'll find a way to wriggle out of it. That nurse might be too scared to testify. Then what do? Mia asked anxiously. You can't stay there. Don't worry. I have some physical evidence here too. I just need to create an opportunity to get them to incriminate themselves. For now, keep an eye on things from your end. Especially that nurse. Try to persuade her, make sure she'll be willing to help when the time comes. Okay, Chloe, please be careful. I'm on standby 24/7. After the call, I leaned against the wall, slowly processing the information. The first wife's death was almost certainly a murder. The company's massive debt was the motive. My insurance payout was part of the plan. The component from the fire scene was the physical proof. All that was left was the final blow, getting them to confess. I needed an opportunity. A chance to make them so confident, so drunk on their perceived success, that they would let the truth slip. I looked at my composed reflection in the mirror and clenched my fists. Opportunity favors the prepared. And I was more than prepared. After getting the crucial information from Mia, I was more certain than ever, but also more anxious. The chain of evidence was nearly complete. All that remained was the final step of getting them to incriminate themselves. I had to create an opportunity. An opportunity to make them believe their scheme was successful, to make them feel so triumphant and close to victory that they would drop their guard. How to create such an opportunity? By giving them what they wanted. What did Julian want most? Money, my trust fund, or my insurance payout? What did his mother want most? For her son's company to be saved, and to continue living her life as a wealthy socialite. Fine, I thought. I'll throw you both a very tempting piece of bait. 2 days later, at the dinner table, Julian once again had a worried look on his face, barely touching his food. He had clearly received another call from a creditor. I put down my fork, looked at him with a concerned expression, and said softly, "Julian, you've looked so stressed these last few days. Is there trouble at the company?" Julian sighed, forcing a smile. "No, Chloe, it's nothing. Just a small issue. Nothing I can't handle." His mother chimed in from the side. "That's right. Men's business is not for us women to worry about." I lowered my head, fiddling with my napkin, pretending to hesitate before speaking. "Actually, I know. The company needs a lot of money, right?" Julian froze for a second, his eyes wary. "Who told you that nonsense?" I quickly shook my head, my face a mask of innocence. No one. I just guessed. You haven't been sleeping well, and you frown every time the phone rings. We're married now. We should share everything." I looked at him with sincere eyes. "The trust fund my parents set up for me, and my own savings. It should be around $10 million. I know it's probably not enough, but maybe it can help with the most urgent problems. I can't bear to see you suffering like this." After I finished, I watched them both intently. It was exactly as I'd predicted. A glint of light flashed in both Julian's and his mother's eyes. It was the greedy glint of a hunter seeing its prey walk straight into a trap. Julian immediately grabbed my hand, his voice filled with emotion. "Chloe, are you serious? You'd give me your trust fund?" "For me," I nodded shyly. "You're my husband. If I don't help you, who will?" His mother beamed and came over to hug me. "Oh, my sweet girl. I knew you were a good one. Julian, do you see? See how sensible and kind our Chloe is. 100 times better than you." Julian nodded, repeatedly, looking at me with a mixture of gratitude and the triumphant joy of a successful schemer. He said hypocritically, "Chloe, how can I accept this? That's your money." I continued the act. "It's okay. Let's get through this crisis first. When the company is doing well again, you can buy me something even better." I scoffed internally. "Once you get this money, your next step is to send me to my grave." "As expected," his mother said impatiently. "Yes, let's do that. Tomorrow. Go with Julian tomorrow and get it done. The sooner the money is transferred, the sooner we can solve this problem." Julian nodded. "She's right, Chloe. Let's go to the bank first thing tomorrow." Their greedy, impatient faces made me want to vomit, but I had to feign happiness on the outside. The fish had taken the bait. They thought I had fallen for their act completely, that once they had the money, all their problems would be solved. They would surely let down their guard, maybe even celebrate in advance. And that would be the moment I was waiting for. The moment when they were at their most arrogant and careless, when I could get the most damning evidence of all. The climax of the play was approaching. After dinner, Julian and his mother were effusively warm towards me, treating me like their savior. After enduring their charade of a happy family, I excused myself to the guest room, feigning exhaustion. The moment the door closed, I locked it and leaned back against it, letting out a long breath. Acting with those wolves was torture. I went to my bedside table and retrieved my phone and a small backup voice recorder from its hiding place. I had bought it years ago to record meetings, never imagining I would use it for something like this. I checked the battery and memory, ensuring it was in perfect condition. I would definitely need it tomorrow. Then I sat on the bed and mentally organized all the clues and evidence I had gathered so far. Like assembling a puzzle, I pieced together the entire picture of their conspiracy. Puzzle piece has shown motive. The hundreds of millions in debt Mia had uncovered. Julian's company was on the brink of bankruptcy and desperately needed a massive influx of cash. Puzzle piece, #2, the target. Me, the only daughter of a wealthy family with a substantial trust fund. And the secret $10 million life insurance policy Julian had taken out with himself as the sole beneficiary. Puzzle piece #3 precedent. The suspicious death of Julian's first wife, Isabel. The nurse's testimony suggested the possibility of murder. At that time, the Ashworth Company was also facing financial difficulties. The pattern was similar: the wife dies in an accident and the husband benefits. Puzzle piece #4, the act. The accidental fire on my wedding night. I survived thanks to Elena's warning. The remnant of the timer or remote detonator Elena found at the scene was direct physical evidence of arson. Puzzle piece #5, the reaction. Julian and his mother's behavior after the fire. Their concern when I returned their attention and their excessive interest in the results of the police investigation. Puzzle piece #6, the lure. Just now, when I offered my trust fund their unconcealed joy and impatience. Their true motive coveting my assets was completely exposed. Every piece fit perfectly. The full scope of their evil plot was laid bare before me. Julian had approached me for my money, rushed into marriage, and planned to kill me in a staged accident to use my insurance payout and trust fund to save his company. And this might not even be the first time he had done it. Rage simmered in my chest like a volcano. This wasn't just a domestic dispute. This was a clear case of murder for financial gain. They had treated me like a lamb for the slaughter, but the rage cooled into a steely resolve. Fortunately, I had found out. Fortunately, Elena had saved me. Fortunately, I was not a fool to the end. It was time to switch the roles of hunter and prey. I gripped the voice recorder tightly. Tomorrow, if they showed the slightest crack, if they let slip any words hinting at their conspiracy, I would record it. It would be the final, most powerful weapon to bring them to justice. Julian Ashworth. Eleanor Ashworth. Your end is near. The next morning, just as I expected, Julian was eager to take me to the bank to handle the transfer. Before we left, I secretly turned on the slim voice recorder and tucked it into the inner pocket of my coat, making sure the microphone wasn't obstructed. My heart was beating a little faster, a mix of nerves and exhilaration. Julian seemed particularly triumphant today. On the way, he was incredibly attentive, rambling on about how he would expand the business once the funds were secured and how he would take me on a trip around the world. I smiled in response, laughing inwardly. Your world tour will probably be of a prison yard. At the bank, the process for such a large transfer was complicated. While we waited, Julian kept glancing at his watch, a picture of impatience. I asked innocently, Julian, the company must be in a real bind. You seem to be in such a hurry. He sighed and lowered his voice. Yeah. A few of the creditors have been putting on some serious pressure. Any later and things could have gotten ugly. He paused then, as if to protect his successful businessman image. He quickly added, but don't worry. As soon as this money goes through, it'll all be solved. And when that happens, he didn't finish the sentence, but in his eyes I saw not only the relief of a man unburdening himself, but also a flash of cold cruelty. I just nodded and didn't press further, mentally noting his words. A confession of severe creditor pressure and the desperate need for this money. The transfer was completed, and my trust fund was moved to his company's account. Julian looked at the confirmation message on his phone with an expression that was an undisguised mix of joy, relief, and a hint of that same cruelty. He let out a long breath and wrapped an arm around my shoulders. We did it, Chloe. You're my lucky charm. Come on, I'll buy you a celebratory dinner. A celebration. A celebration for getting his hands on my money. Or a celebration that his plan was halfway to completion. At dinner, he was in high spirits, and even ordered a bottle of expensive red wine. After a few glasses, he became more talkative. He looked at me with a complex expression, then said sentimentally, You know, Chloe, sometimes I think fate is a strange thing. If only Isabel had been half as helpful to me as you are. Well, no use talking about the past. The sudden mention of his first wife made my senses sharpen. I immediately perked up my ears, trying to coax him into saying more. Isabel, what happened with her? Did she also help you when you were in a difficult time? Julian, perhaps loosened by the wine or feeling invincible now that the money was secured, scoffed and waved his hand dismissively. She didn't have your resources. Her family was already going under by then. They weren't in any position to help. I guess she was just unlucky. His words were vague, but when combined with what Mia had discovered, their meaning was crystal clear. Since there was nothing left to extract from Isabel's family, she had unluckily died. I suppressed the rage boiling inside me and asked innocently, Oh, that's a shame. But it's okay now, right, Julian? We're going to be happy from now on, aren't we? There won't be any more. Accidents, will there? I deliberately stressed the word accidents. Julian laughed and reached out to stroke my face. His eyes were full of the arrogance of a man who thought he had everything under control. Don't worry, darling. No more accidents. All the accidents are in the past now. From now on, it's only good days ahead. When he said, all the accidents are in the past, now, his tone, the relief, the look of complete control, I was almost certain. The accidents he was referring to was his failed plan on our wedding night. I lowered my head to take a bite of food, hiding the cold fury in my eyes. The recorder in my coat pocket was faithfully capturing every word. That's it. This is enough. Although he didn't explicitly say, "I set the fire to kill you," this conversation, combined with all the other circumstances, was more than enough to imply his motive, his history, and his clear awareness of the accident. After dinner, the elated Julian suggested we go see a movie. I feigned dizziness and said I wanted to go home and rest. He didn't insist and dropped me off at the estate. The moment I got back, I went to the guest room and locked the door. I took out the recorder and replayed the conversation. Julian's voice filled the quiet room. A few of the creditors have been putting on some serious pressure. I guess she was just unlucky. All the accidents are in the past now. Listening to his triumphant words, I trembled with rage, but my fingers also tingled with excitement. Solid evidence. This is solid evidence. The final puzzle piece had finally fallen into place. Julian Ashworth. Eleanor Ashworth. Your requiem is about to be played. After securing the recording, I knew it was time to close the net. I couldn't delay any longer. Every day I waited was another day of risk. Julian had my trust fund and had temporarily staved off his crisis, but there was no guarantee that he wouldn't try to harm me again out of spite for his failed plan. I had to strike first, but I didn't call the police immediately. I needed a flawless plan to ensure they would be finished in one fell swoop with no loopholes to escape through. If possible, I wanted to expose them in a public setting in front of as many people as possible. I wanted to rip off their masks so they couldn't retaliate privately or offer slick excuses, and so their downfall would serve as the loudest possible warning to society. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. At dinner, my mother-in-law, Eleanor, announced cheerfully, "My dears, my birthday is in a few days. It's not a big milestone, but we've had so much good fortune in the house lately. I was thinking of having a small party just with close family and friends. A way to wash away the bad luck from that incident." Julian immediately agreed. "That's a great idea, Mother. We have a lot to celebrate, so we should definitely have a party. I'll have the staff start preparations right away." I cheered inwardly. A birthday party. Close family and friends. This was a God-sent opportunity. I immediately feigned delight. "That's wonderful, Mother. I'll be sure to raise a toast to you then. Happy early birthday." Eleanor beamed at my words. "Thank you, dear. You're always so sweet." With the time and place set, my mind began to race. The party would be crowded and chaotic. It would be the moment they were least on their guard and the perfect stage for my exposé. The next day, I got permission to leave the house under the pretense of a spa day with a friend. As soon as I was out of the Ashworth site, I found a quiet cafe, took out my phone, and made a call. I didn't dial 911. Instead, I called Captain Miller, an old friend of my father's and a high-ranking officer in the state police whom I had known since I was a child. This case was too serious. I needed someone absolutely trustworthy who could control the situation. When he answered, I lowered my voice and concisely explained everything that had happened, the evidence I had collected, photos of the insurance policy, the fire debris, the audio recording, and my plan. Captain Miller was shocked and furious. "Good Lord, Chloe. That's monstrous. Don't you worry. I've got your back. This is a very serious matter, so I'll personally assign a team of my most trusted officers. Just give me the time and place. I'll have them attend in plainclothes, posing as guests. They'll move in on your signal. We'll prioritize your safety and secure the suspects and the evidence at the same time." Hearing Captain Miller's assurance was like having a massive weight lifted from my shoulders. After the call, I contacted Mia, told her the final plan, and asked her to be on standby in case I needed remote support to verify any information on the spot. With all preparations in place, I actually went to a spa to soothe my frayed nerves before returning to the Ashworth estate. When I got back, Julian and Eleanor were still excitedly discussing the party's guest list and menu. Their faces were aglow with the genuine happiness that came from having their financial crisis temporarily averted. I watched them with a subservient smile sneering on the inside. "Celebrate all you want. Enjoy it. It will be the last of your false prosperity as free people. I'm bringing you a very special gift for your birthday party, one you'll never forget." The day of Eleanor Ashworth's birthday party finally arrived. The estate was a hive of activity from early morning. Staff cleaned and decorated, and delicious smells wafted from the kitchen. The garden was set with tables and fresh flowers, creating a festive atmosphere. Julian and Eleanor, dressed in their finest, greeted guests at the door with brilliant smiles. The guests were mostly Ashworth relatives and business associates, all dripping with wealth and status. I too was meticulously dressed in a soft, elegant dress, my makeup flawless. I stood by Julian's side, a perfect smile on my face, playing the role of the happy, adoring wife. Guests would compliment us, saying things like, "What a lovely bride," or "Julian, you're a lucky man," or "Eleanor, you must be so proud." Julian and his mother soaked in the praise, their pride unconcealed, but I could feel it. Beneath Julian's triumphant expression, I saw the cold, calculating glint in his eyes when he looked at me. It was a look that seemed to say, "Enjoy it. It will be your last luxury." I responded with a look of even greater adoration, laughing silently to myself. "You should smile while you can. Your time is almost up." The party was in full swing. People drank, mingled, and flattered one another. The garden was filled with laughter. Eleanor was surrounded by her friends, basking in their birthday wishes, grinning from ear to ear. Julian moved through the crowd, showing off his image as a successful man who had conquered both business and love. I quietly scanned the area. I saw Captain Miller's people. Dressed as guests, they were scattered among the crowd, pretending to chat casually, but their sharp eyes were constantly monitoring me and the surroundings. I felt a surge of confidence. The time had come. It was time to deliver my special gift. Taking a deep breath, my smile still in place, I walked slowly to a small open space in the center of the garden, near a fountain where my voice would carry. I lightly clapped my hands to get everyone's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, our dear friends and family, could I have your attention for just a moment, please?" The buzz of conversation slowly died down. People turned to look at me curious. Julian and Eleanor also watched me with smiles, assuming I was about to give a congratulatory speech. Julian even chuckled to the crowd. "It seems my wife has a toast for her mother-in-law." I looked at him. The smile on my face slowly faded, replaced by a cold calm. I opened my mouth, my voice ringing out clearly across the garden. "Today is indeed a special day for my mother-in-law, and so I have a very special birthday gift for her. A gift called the truth." Everyone stared confused. Julian and Eleanor's smiles froze on their faces, a flicker of doubt and unease crossing their features. Eleanor tried to salvage the situation with a forced laugh. "Chloe, dear, what are you talking about?" "The truth." I ignored her and addressed the crowd. "I'd like to tell you all a story. A story about the accidental fire on my wedding night. A story about the real cause of death of Mr. Julian Ashworth's first wife, the late Isabel. And a story about the Ashworth Company's multi-hundred-million-dollar debt and my $10 million life insurance policy, which lists Julian as the sole beneficiary." With every sentence, I spoke a layer of color drained from Julian's and Eleanor's faces. Gasps rippled through the guests. "What is this nonsense you're spouting?" Julian finally snapping out of his shock. His face, a deathly pale, tried to rush towards me to stop me. But it was too late. The show had just begun. As Julian lunged forward, two men who looked like guests casually stepped in his way, blocking his path. I looked at him without a trace of fear and continued speaking quickly and clearly for all to hear. "Whether it's nonsense or not, you'll all soon find out. On my wedding night, the person who saved me was our head housekeeper, Elena. She helped me escape the burning room, and that's why I'm alive today. And in the aftermath, Elena found this." I held up my phone, displaying a magnified photo of the burnt device remnant. "This is a component from a timer or a remote-controlled igniter. It's proof that the fire was arson." The crowd erupted in murmurs. Everyone turned to stare at Julian and Eleanor in shock. Eleanor shrieked, "You're lying through your teeth! It was an accident." "The police said so," I sneered. "An accident? Then what about this insurance policy?" I switched the screen on my phone to the photo of the policy. Taken out the day before our marriage was registered. A $10 million payout. Beneficiary Julian Ashworth. Is this also a coincidence? Without giving them a chance to breathe, I played the most critical part of the audio file. Julian's voice filled the air. "A few of the creditors have been putting on some serious pressure. I guess she was just unlucky. All the accidents are in the past now." As the recording played, a dead silence fell over the party. While it wasn't a direct confession of murder, the tone, the content, and the context made the meaning unmistakable to anyone with a brain. Julian, his face ashen, pointed a trembling finger at me. "Lies. It's all lies. You fabricated it. You're framing me." I stared him down. "Framing you? Is your company's massive debt also a lie? Is the fact that your first wife Isabel died of acute poisoning also a lie? Is it a lie that you plan to use my trust fund and insurance money to pay off those debts? Did you Think a naive woman like me deserved to be cheated and killed. For her money. Did you think that once Isabel was no longer useful, she deserved to be poisoned? Each of my questions landed like a hammer blow. They were speechless. The guests now understood everything. They looked at the Ashworths with a mixture of shock, disgust, and horror. The murmurs grew louder. My God, how horrific. I always thought Isabel's death was too sudden. Murder for money, and he was a serial offender. Monsters. Absolute animals. Julian and Eleanor were in a full-blown panic. Pale and trembling, they tried to make excuses, but their words were incoherent. Eleanor collapsed onto the ground, wailing, "No, it's not true. She made it all up." At that exact moment, Captain Miller's plainclothes officers identified themselves. They swiftly moved in and subdued Julian and Eleanor, who were trying to resist and flee. The lead detective announced grimly, "Julian Ashworth. Eleanor Ashworth, you are under arrest for attempted murder fraud and on suspicion of involvement in the death of Isabel Ashworth. You have the right to remain silent." As the handcuffs clicked shut around his wrists, Julian finally broke. He screamed at me, his face contorted with hate. "Chloe Davis, you venomous bitch. You will pay for this." I looked at him coldly, my voice steady and firm. "The ones who will pay are you and your snake of a mother. The law will give you exactly what you deserve." As they were dragged away by the police, I finally let the tension in my shoulders release. The garden was in chaos. The guests, in a state of shock, looked at me with a mixture of pity and awe. I knew then. I had won. The terrible nightmare was finally over. With Julian and Eleanor's arrest, the birthday party ended as a horrifying crime scene. The guests, chattering in disbelief, quickly dispersed. The once lively estate was suddenly empty, leaving behind only the messy aftermath and a few bewildered staff members. I stood in the middle of the garden, watching it all unfold. I felt a complex mix of relief from achieving my revenge, the safety of being out of danger, and the hollow emptiness that follows a monumental ordeal. Elena cautiously approached and draped her cardigan over my shoulders again. Her eyes were red. "Miss Chloe, are you all right?" My heart was about to stop back there. I took her hand, my voice a little hoarse. "I'm fine, Elena. It's all thanks to you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be standing here today. I never could have exposed their crimes." Soon after, my parents and Mia arrived in a rush, having already been informed. The moment my mother saw me, she ran and hugged me, sobbing. "My daughter, my poor girl. You have no idea how scared I was. Why didn't you tell us sooner?" My father, his face pale, wore an expression of mixed fury and relief. Unbelievable. Those animals from the Ashworth family dared to lay a hand on my daughter. I will not let this go. Mia grabbed my arm, a tearful smile on her face. "Chloe, you were amazing. So brave." I was so worried. Surrounded by the support and comfort of my family, a warmth spread through me, and I finally felt completely safe. The following days were spent cooperating with the police and submitting all my evidence. The case was heinous and the evidence undeniable, so it moved quickly. The insurance policy, the forensic report on the fire debris, Mia's evidence of the company's debt, the files on Isabel's suspicious death, and the crucial audio recording formed a perfect, unbreakable chain. Based on my testimony and the questions surrounding Isabel's case, the police reopened the investigation and found additional evidence implicating Julian and Eleanor in her murder. While waiting for the trial, I worked with my lawyer to file for divorce and recover my trust fund. Fortunately, the transfer records were clear, and the police had frozen the Ashworth Company's accounts, allowing me to retrieve most of my money. I completely severed all ties with the Ashworth family. On the day of the trial, I did not attend. I never wanted to see their disgusting faces again. Mia later told me that Julian and Eleanor tried to deny everything to the end, but in the face of overwhelming evidence, their excuses were useless. In the end, Julian was found guilty of attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder, and was sentenced to life in prison. His mother, as an accomplice, also received a long prison sentence. When I heard the news, the last knot of anger in my heart finally dissolved. Justice had been served. They had finally paid the price for their greed and wickedness. After everything was over, the first thing I did was visit Elena. After the trial, she had quit her job at the Ashworth estate and moved in with her son. I went to her son's home, and without a word, I knelt down and gave her a deep, formal bow. Elena, shocked, tried to pull me up. "Miss Chloe, what are you doing? Please, get up." I only stood after completing the bow. Tears streamed down my face. "Elena, you must accept this. If it weren't for you, the person named Chloe Davis would have been nothing but ashes. You saved my life twice. Once you saved me from death. The second time you gave me the courage and the evidence to expose their crimes. You are my savior." Elena also had tears in her eyes as she took my hand. "Don't say that, Miss Chloe. I just did what was right. Seeing you safe and sound now is all the reward I need." I wiped my tears and spoke formally. "Elena, what are your plans for retirement? If you'll allow me, I'd like to buy you a small condominium and set up a retirement fund for you so you can live the rest of your life in comfort. This is a small token of my gratitude. Please don't refuse." Elena waved her hands. No, that's too much. I can't accept it." I was firm. "You must. This isn't charity, it's repayment. If you don't accept it, my heart will never be at ease." In the end, she tearfully accepted. I soon found a quiet, cozy condo for her, transferred the deed, and deposited a substantial sum into her bank account. Only after seeing her settled and secure did the final weight lift from my soul. With Elena taken care of, I felt I had truly closed the chapter on my past. I sold all the jewelry and gifts I had received from the Ashworths. I donated a portion of the money to a foundation for women's shelters, hoping to help other women who might find themselves in similar unfortunate situations. With the rest, I started my own business. I opened a small, intimate design studio doing work that I loved. My days became busy and fulfilling. Despite the horrific nightmare I had endured, I did not lose hope in life. In fact, having come back from the brink of death, I cherished each day more and became a stronger, more independent person. My parents were initially worried about my emotional scars, but seeing me live my life with such positivity and determination, they gradually relaxed. Though they did occasionally remind me never to trust a man so easily again. Mia still came by my studio, often mooching food and joking that she was now my lifelong bodyguard. Sometimes alone I look out the window and remember that chilling experience. It feels like a terrible dream. But after waking from the nightmare, I found the sun was still shining brightly. I am grateful to all the people who helped me, especially Elena. And I am grateful to myself for not giving in to despair and for choosing to fight back. Life dealt me a heavy blow, but I survived it and earned a new beginning. The road ahead is still long, but I believe that if I keep a good heart and move forward with courage, good things will surely happen.